Billionaire's mom was deaf for 65 years, until Maid's son pulled out something shocking. The mansion rises from the Massachusetts hillside like a monument to American success. Granite pillars, hand-carved gargoyles, and windows that stretch from floor to ceiling, each one reflecting the kind of wealth that builds dynasties. Inside these walls lives Eleanor Sterling, 65 years old, deaf since birth, and one of the most powerful women in the country. Her business empire spans 3 generations. Real estate, energy, technology, but she's never heard a single board meeting, never heard her own voice echo in these marble halls. For 65 years, Eleanor has navigated a world of complete silence. Not by choice, but by the cruel lottery of genetics. Her children, Marcus and Victoria, have built their lives around managing her empire, speaking for her in business deals, translating the world through their own carefully filtered lens. To the outside world, Eleanor Sterling is a mysterious genius who lets her results speak louder than words. But inside this mansion, she's something else entirely. She's a woman whose entire existence has been interpreted by people who may not have her best interests at heart. Hey, my precious family, before we dive deeper into this incredible journey, I need you to do something crucial right now. Hit that subscribe button. Don't scroll past this moment. Like this video. And tell me in the comments what time it is where you are and what country you're watching from. We're building something extraordinary together, uploading powerful stories every single day. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. The staff at the Sterling Mansion operates with military precision. Every servant knows their place, every routine runs like clockwork. But today, something changes. Maria Santos, the head housekeeper for 15 years, brings her 7-year-old son Liam to work. It's an emergency, his school is closed, her babysitter cancelled, and Eleanor's children are traveling on business. Maria has no choice but to bring the boy and pray he stays invisible. Liam Santos is different from most children. Where other kids might be intimidated by the mansion's grandeur, Liam moves through the space with genuine curiosity. He doesn't see wealth. He sees a lonely woman who sits by herself at breakfast every morning, whose hands move in the air when she's thinking, whose eyes hold a sadness that reminds him of stray dogs he's seen on the street. While his mother cleans the east wing, Liam wanders into Eleanor's study. She's sitting at her mahogany desk, reviewing documents, completely unaware of his presence. He watches her for a moment, then approaches with the fearless empathy that only children possess. He waves at her, and when she looks up, surprised, he smiles and begins to draw pictures on the notepad beside her coffee cup. Eleanor is startled but not unpleasantly so. Children rarely visit this house. Her own grandchildren live across the country and visit maybe twice a year, always with their parents hovering, always treating her like an expensive museum piece they're afraid to touch. But this boy looks at her like she's just a person who might want to share a moment of connection. Liam draws a picture of the mansion, then points to Eleanor and draws her sitting by the window. Then he draws himself, standing beside her. He writes in careful 7-year-old handwriting, "You look sad." "I get sad too sometimes." Eleanor reads the note and something inside her chest loosens. When was the last time someone acknowledged her emotions instead of just managing her business affairs? She writes back, "What makes you sad?" Liam thinks for a moment, then writes, "When I can't help someone who needs help." This exchange, simple as breathing, is the first crack in a wall that's been standing for 65 years. Over the next few days, while his mother works, Liam becomes Eleanor's unofficial companion. He brings her drawings, shares his snacks, and most importantly, he treats her deafness not as a disability but as just another way of being in the world. He learns basic sign language from YouTube videos, practicing in the servants' quarters at night, determined to communicate better with his new friend. Eleanor finds herself looking forward to these visits in ways that surprise her. When Marcus calls from his business trip, demanding updates about quarterly projections, she realizes she's been thinking more about Liam's drawings than about profit margins. When Victoria emails about a merger that requires Eleanor's signature, she catches herself wondering what Liam thinks about the pictures in her art collection. But Liam sees something the adults have missed. He notices how Eleanor's face changes when her children call. How her shoulders tense when she reads their messages. How she sometimes touches her ear with a puzzled expression, like she's trying to remember something important. One afternoon, while exploring the mansion's storage rooms with the curiosity that only children possess, Liam discovers something extraordinary. Hidden behind boxes of Eleanor's old belongings, wrapped in cloth and tucked inside a jewelry box, he finds a small electronic device. It looks like a hearing aid, but more advanced than anything he's seen before. There's a note with it, written in Eleanor's late husband's handwriting, for Eleanor, when she's ready to hear the truth. Liam doesn't understand the full significance of his discovery, but he knows it's important. That evening, he shows the device to his mother. Maria's face goes white when she sees it. She knows exactly what this is. She's been cleaning this house for 15 years, and she's seen the old medical records, the correspondence with specialists, the bills for procedures that never seem to result in any change for Eleanor. Maria explains to her son what she's pieced together over the years. Eleanor wasn't born profoundly deaf. She had partial hearing as a child, enough to learn speech, enough to function in the hearing world. But a childhood illness damaged her hearing significantly, and her family made a decision that shaped her entire life. Instead of pursuing the experimental treatments available at the time, they chose silence. They convinced themselves, and her, that complete deafness was her destiny. But technology advanced. Treatments improved. And Eleanor's late husband had secretly consulted specialists, learned about possibilities, even acquired this experimental device. But before he could tell Eleanor about it, he died in a car accident, taking the secret with him. The device in Liam's hands represents 40 years of stolen sound. The next morning, Liam makes a decision that will change everything. He approaches Eleanor in her study and, with the directness that only children can manage, he shows her the hearing aid. Eleanor's hands tremble as she recognizes her husband's handwriting on the note. She reads it once, twice, 3 times, her face cycling through confusion, hope, and fear. "Where did you find this?" she writes. "In the storage room." "I think your husband wanted you to have it," Liam writes back. Eleanor stares at the device for a long time. The implications are staggering. If this works, if she can hear, then everything changes. Every conversation she's missed, every business deal conducted over her head, every family gathering where she sat in isolation while others made decisions about her life, all of it takes on a different meaning. That afternoon, Eleanor and Liam drive to Boston, to the office of Dr. Sarah Chen, an audiologist whose name was in her husband's research notes. Dr. Chen is initially skeptical. Eleanor's medical records show profound hearing loss, and the family has consistently refused intervention. But when she examines Eleanor and learns about the hidden device, her expression changes. "Mrs. Sterling," Dr. Chen says carefully, "based on these tests and this device your husband acquired, I believe you may have significant recoverable hearing. This technology has advanced tremendously. We could try a gradual integration." Eleanor's world tilts on its axis. Recoverable hearing. For 65 years, she's lived in silence, accepting it as her permanent reality. Her children have built their entire relationship with her around managing her disability. Every major life decision has been filtered through their interpretation of what she needs, what she can handle, what's best for someone who can't hear the world. Dr. Chen fits the device carefully, calibrating it to Eleanor's specific hearing profile. The activation is gradual, gentle, but the moment sound enters Eleanor's world after decades of silence, tears stream down her face. The first thing she hears clearly is Liam's voice saying, "Can you hear me now, Eleanor?" The ride home is overwhelming. Car engines, wind through windows, the radio, construction noise, the world is impossibly loud and chaotic. But underneath the sensory overload, Eleanor experiences something she hasn't felt in 65 years, complete connection to her environment. That night, alone in her study, Eleanor begins to overhear conversations for the first time in her adult life. And what she hears destroys everything she thought she knew about her family. Marcus and Victoria are on a conference call, and they're not discussing business. They're discussing her. Eleanor stands frozen outside the door as their voices carry through the hallway. The hearing aid research Mom's been asking about lately is concerning, Victoria says. If she ever regained hearing, she'd realize how much we've been handling for her. She's been the perfect silent partner, Marcus replies. Literally. She signs whatever we put in front of her because she trusts us to interpret everything correctly. But if she could hear board meetings, if she could take calls directly, we'd lose control of the company, Victoria finishes. And frankly, we'd lose control of her fortune. Eleanor's blood runs cold. Control. They're talking about controlling her, not protecting her. Every business decision they've made, on her behalf, every family choice they've simplified for her. None of it was about her limitations. It was about their power. She continues listening, and the conversation gets worse. Remember when she wanted to donate to that Childhood Deafness Research Foundation? Marcus asks. We told her it was a financial risk, that the charity had poor ratings. But really, we just didn't want her getting ideas about hearing restoration. Or when she asked about visiting that school for deaf children, Victoria adds. We convinced her it would be too emotionally taxing. But honestly, we were afraid she'd meet other deaf people who'd tell her about all the options we've never mentioned. Eleanor realizes that for years, her own children have been systematically isolating her from any information that might lead to hearing restoration. They've controlled her medical care, her social connections, her access to resources. They've kept her deaf not because treatment wasn't available, but because her deafness served their interests. The next morning brings the confrontation that will shatter the Sterling family forever. Eleanor sits in the main dining room, the hearing device discreetly in place, as Marcus and Victoria return from their business trip. They enter talking loudly about a deal they're negotiating, assuming, as always, that their mother can't hear their conversation. The Phoenix merger will net us another $50 million, Marcus says to Victoria. Mom doesn't need to know the details. Just that it's good for the family business. She's been asking too many questions lately, Victoria replies. Maybe we need to hire a different assistant, someone more willing to keep information simple for her. Eleanor clears her throat. For the first time in 65 years, she speaks aloud in her own home. I can hear every word you're saying. The silence that follows is deafening. Marcus and Victoria freeze, their faces cycling through shock, confusion, and panic. Eleanor's voice is clear, strong, and filled with 65 years of suppressed emotion. I found the hearing aid your father left for me. The one you knew about but never mentioned. I've been able to hear for 3 days now, and I've heard enough to understand exactly what you've been doing. Victoria recovers first, immediately shifting into damage control mode. Mom, you're confused. We've always acted in your best interests. Managing your medical care, your business affairs. You mean controlling my medical care, Eleanor interrupts. Preventing me from learning about treatment options. Isolating me from other deaf people who might have told me that hearing aids existed. Convincing me that silence was my only option when you knew it wasn't. Marcus steps forward, his voice taking on the patronizing tone Eleanor now realizes she's been hearing for decades. You're overwhelmed by all this new sensory input. Hearing after 65 years of deafness must be confusing. Let us help you process. The only thing I'm processing, Eleanor says, is that my own children have spent decades lying to me. Not to protect me, but to control me. She produces a folder of documents. Financial records she's been able to access for the first time now that she can take phone calls directly, medical consultations she's scheduled without their knowledge, legal advice she's sought independently. I've learned that there have been 3 different treatment options for my type of hearing loss over the past 20 years. 3 different times specialists contacted our family about potential interventions. And 3 different times, you told them I wasn't interested without ever informing me of their calls. The evidence is overwhelming. Phone records, medical correspondence, even emails between Marcus and Victoria discussing the best ways to manage Mom's expectations about her hearing. But the deepest betrayal is still to come. Eleanor's voice remains steady as she continues. I also learned about the charitable foundation I wanted to establish for deaf children. The one you convinced me was financially irresponsible. I discovered that you've actually been using my intended donations to fund your own investment projects. $47 million over 8 years, intended for children's medical care, instead funding your private business ventures. Victoria's face crumbles. Mom, we were going to pay it back. The investments were supposed to generate more money for charity eventually. You stole from deaf children, Eleanor says simply. And you used my disability as the cover for your theft. The room falls silent except for the sound of Eleanor's newly activated world, the tick of the grandfather clock, birds outside the window, the distant hum of traffic. Sounds she was prevented from hearing not by biology, but by betrayal. Marcus makes one final attempt to regain control. Even if you can hear now, you've been out of direct business management for decades. You'll need guidance transitioning back to active leadership. We can help with that process if you'll let us. Eleanor's laugh is the first sound she's made with joy in 65 years. I'm not transitioning back to leadership, she says. I'm starting over completely. And you're not part of that new beginning. Over the following weeks, Eleanor dismantles the life her children built around her silence and constructs something entirely new. She sells the mansion, liquidates the family business, and establishes a foundation dedicated to ensuring that no child with hearing loss is ever denied treatment options due to family control or financial constraints. She hires Liam's mother, Maria, not as a housekeeper but as her personal assistant, recognizing that Maria had been the only employee who truly saw Eleanor as a person rather than a problem to be managed. She enrolls in speech therapy, not because her voice is unclear, but because she wants to experience the full range of vocal expression she was denied for 65 years. Most importantly, she surrounds herself with people who value her thoughts, her choices, and her autonomy. She joins support groups for late deafened adults, not because she needs help coping with hearing loss, but because she wants to connect with people who understand the experience of navigating a world that often sees disability as something to be managed rather than accommodated. Marcus and Victoria face criminal charges for financial fraud and elder abuse. The legal proceedings reveal the systematic nature of their control. Forged medical documents, intercepted communications with specialists, and financial manipulation that span decades. They lose not only their positions in the family business but their freedom. But Eleanor's story isn't about revenge. It's about reclamation. 6 months after Liam found that hearing aid, Eleanor sits in a much smaller home, surrounded by the sounds she's learning to love. Rain against windows. Music from the radio. The laughter of children from the school next door. And most precious of all, conversations with people who see her not as someone to be managed, but as someone worth knowing. Liam visits every week, and they've developed their own communication style, a mixture of sign language, spoken words, and the kind of understanding that transcends any single sense. He's learning piano now, with lessons Eleanor sponsors, and she's learning that the most beautiful sound in the world isn't music or nature or the bustle of city life. It's the sound of genuine human connection. Eleanor's final act of reclamation is writing her memoir, dictating it aloud for the first time in her life. The book's title, 65 Years of Silence, How I Found My Voice by Learning to Hear. In the final chapter, she writes, I spent most of my life believing that my deafness was my limitation. But my real limitation was trusting others to define what I could and couldn't hear, what I could and couldn't understand, what I was and wasn't capable of experiencing. The day I got my hearing back wasn't the day I started to hear the world. It was the day I started to hear the truth. So here's what I want to know from you, my precious family. If you discover that the people you trusted most have been controlling your reality to serve their own interests, what would you do? Would you choose forgiveness or justice? And more importantly, would you have the courage to tear down everything familiar in order to build something authentic? Drop your answer in the comments below. Tell me what you think about Eleanor's journey. Tell me about times when you've had to choose between comfort and truth. And while you're down there, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this story, and subscribe to our channel. We upload incredible stories every single day, each one crafted to make you feel something real and think something deeper. Thank you for being my precious family. I'll see you in the next story.